All right, welcome to another episode of LearnBiz, the podcast. Hope you guys are having an excellent day. We're just getting started here. I'm Lisa K. Crawford, and joined by the beautiful Sandy B. How are you this morning?
Hey, good morning, Lisa. How are you?
Good morning. So we were supposed to have a guest this morning, but this is not a perfect world, and so we have to make adjustments along the way. And so Sandy and I decided to come on anyway because we have lots to talk about, and we want to get started with some of the topics that we want to bring to you this morning. I'm going to kick it off to Sandy to introduce some of these topics that we're going to talk to you about. But in the meantime, happy National Black Business Month. Yes, this is an opportunity for us to focus on Black business officially, nationally, and to support and help each other along the way. Sandy?
So, definitely, we've been spending some time this month not only celebrating Black businesses in our local community, but we've also been acknowledging some of the guests that we've had on our show. So, if you've been following us on Instagram at B is for BIZ, you will see some different snips in our stories and some of our posts about different Black businesses that Lisa and I have both patronized, that Lisa and I have both supported over time, as well as businesses that we have interviewed on our podcast. So if you haven't caught some of our episodes, we have two chock full seasons of guests from every industry that you can think of, whether it be, the hair beauty industry, whether it be, the insurance industry, real estate, the law,
True.
we've found people we just had a
Eh,
winemaker on.
Yes, we did.
So
So, just about every industry. And if you know someone that we should interview, let us know because we will definitely get them on too.
absolutely. And good morning, Rigo. Thank you so much. Always appreciate you for supporting. He said, have a great show. And we
Thank you,
definitely
Rigo.
will. We're celebrating Black business. So
Absolutely.
I wanted to kind of kick this off and talk a little bit about our trip to the Dunn's Josephine Hotel. So I'm going to shoot it back to Lisa to tell us a little brief thing about it while I get a video up on our screen. And also shout out to Doug. Good morning. Thank you
Good
for
morning,
joining us,
Doug.
Doug.
Thank you for joining us. Yes. So you guys may remember that we interviewed the owner and hotelier of Dunn's Josephine Hotel, that being Miss Kristen Kitchen. She's an entrepreneur. She has a bed and breakfast in the Midwest in Cincinnati. She has a few bed and breakfasts in the Carolinas, and she owns the Dunn's Josephine Hotel, which is in historic Overtown, Miami, Florida, and it's a fabulous place. I think there's less than 20 rooms, but the entire hotel is dedicated to the era of the Harlem Renaissance. So all the rooms are named after many of the most notable entertainers from that era. So it's just a fabulous environment. And so Sandy and I were there recently for a wine tasting, mind you, with a really great winemaker, and we've interviewed him too, Nikki Coachman of Quaya Wines, organic wines. Yes. So, Sandy, are you ready to show us some of the highlights from our last visit?
Yeah, let's take a look. So since I couldn't pull up the stuff I really wanted to pull up, let's just take a little snippet here. Welcome to the Dunn's Josephine Hotel in the heart of the historic Old Town neighborhood. That's what we say when our guests come through our doors. My name is Metra Spat. I am the Chief Operating Officer of the Dunn's Josephine Hotel, and Kristen Kitchen is the owner. We are a part of a brand called Sojourn Heritage Accommodations. The first property is in Cincinnati, Ohio, called 6 acres. This is the second property called the Dunn's Josephine Hotel in sunny South Florida. Our third property is Advent on Falls in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And the fourth property is in Shelby called Atwater's Edge. We are a Black woman owned and operated lodging and accommodations experience. The Dunn's Josephine is located in Miami. We are a 15-bed boutique hotel themed after the Harlem Renaissance. Overtown was called the Harlem of the South. All the greats from the Harlem Renaissance came to Miami, performed on Miami Beach, but they couldn't sleep on Miami Beach, so they had to come back to Overtown.
So what I love about Kristen is she is like a box of history. What you might want to know about Overtown here in South Florida, in Miami, is that Overtown has always been a predominantly Black community. It is a historic community. My dad, way back in the day, lived in Overtown. I lived relatively close to Overtown way back in the day. Overtown has always been a predominantly Black community.
Yes.
But what you may not realize right now is gentrification has hit Overtown's door and taken it by storm. And so having a spot like a Dunn's Josephine Hotel is now like a staple in that community because right down the street is developments. And I mean, like it's like night and day. You come from the boutique Dunn's Josephine and you look outside and all you see is high rises and it's just horrible. But you know, it is what it is. These are the things that tend to happen in some of these communities. Hey, 100% true. Definitely appreciate you for tuning in. But you know,
you.
the Overtown community is one that has the opportunity, especially if a lot of Black folks decide to really try to hold on to what's still there, has the opportunity to maintain a historic sense. And I'm so very happy that Kristen and Metris are down there maintaining the Dunn's Josephine. And I really
Yes.
hope they continue to get the support that they deserve, because it's definitely like of hair in the community right now when it comes to looking at Overtown overall.
It's right, you know, and Kristen is a historian by profession. Like, so she went to college. She was a history major, and so she knew from an early age that she wanted to concentrate on African studies and Black history. And
Yeah.
so somehow that young lady paired Black history and real estate together, and this is her entrepreneurial journey, finding these gemstones and bringing them back to life. So she's done it in a very unique way. And I noticed that you talked about gentrification and just kind of like when you're losing the character of the community, it is
Right.
kind of a horrible feeling. What I want people to know as a realtor, that I'm very conscientious about things like that, Sandy, that most people just automatically are. And gentrification can be managed, like what Kristen is doing. If other businesses come into that area, it can be managed. And
Right.
that's what we have to remember. We don't have to lose the complete character
Right.
of our communities if it's done right.
And what I will say about Overtown right now is there is at least a handful of businesses that I can think of at the top of my head that are Black owned and operated. And they have maintained a sense of the culture down there versus resorting to the high rise, right? So, because they could have
Right.
come into the community and done exactly what the other developers are doing and build these massive things that just are eyesores down there. And
Mm-hmm.
if you know me, you know that I'm really not a fan of this gentrification concept in the way that they're operating, because they're literally pulling, like, for example, the Little Haiti community down here, they're literally like eradicating the sense of the community and just coming in and putting whatever. It's like, let's just tear down everything that's in a, 4 or 5 or 10 block radius and just build these eyesores. And it's like,
Red Rooster is another Black business that is in Overtown.
right,
So that is a Southern comfort food type restaurant.
right.
Plus, they have craft cocktails and happy hours and a lot of events. A lot of people do go to Red Rooster. So just to name some of the places that you're talking about that are actually in Overtown. So that's what we have to do. We have to grow that concept and keep on growing that, because right now it's expensive. Like, a lot of people can't even afford to live in Overtown anymore.
True.
If you grew up there, you probably, if you went back there today to look for a place to live, you might not be able to afford it.
So let's go ahead and take you on a little tour of a couple of rooms that we got to see before we move on to our next topic here. So Metris took us on a really nice little tour and we got to see a couple of the rooms. This is the Ella Fitzgerald room. Oh, I like Ella. I like the purple walls. Yeah.
That must have been her color.
Stand on one. Has to be.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and you have a nice picture of her here in Ella Fitzgerald in the room.
Go Ella.
So our curtains are blackout curtains. They're also sound barrier curtains. And then in this room that
it almost feels like an old school hotel at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
with new accents.
Exactly.
we know what we need to make a good sound. We also know that it's not cheap. So we're working with different models.
And I think she mentioned during this tour that they source Black owned beauty products for the room. So like the soaps and the lotions and things like that.
She did say that. They make it a point to do that. They always look for Black entrepreneurs to support.
So this is the Ella Fitzgerald room. Let me see if I could scroll to like the bathroom or something so you could see, like, you know, typical. Oh, there go eyes. Typical bathroom structure, but they kind of, you know, do their own thing with the towel folding, and you know, they have some really nice accents and keep up, you know, some basic hotel feel.
Yeah.
With, you know, of course, a couple of boutique accents with the, you know, the artwork, and as I said, the, you know, things like the soaps and any little gadgets and colors that they can add, like pop of color and stuff like that. You know, look at the lamp, and, you know, everything kind of has like a little feel to it. And each room, of course, is acknowledging, you know, the presence of, you know, whoever it is that they, you know, are representing in that room.
Absolutely.
Let me see if I have one more. I thought I did. Let me go back. Oh, no, I maybe don't have one more. So I probably just have, I don't know what this is, but I'll leave that at that, because I think this is a video that you can see on our channel.
Night breezes seem to whisper, I love you.
So I'm not trying to get this little copyright hit and all that nonsense, but I'll so you know, throughout the hotel there are some really, really beautiful accents, and it really gives you a great feel of Renaissance, classic looks. The lobby alone is just really beautifully accented, and their pairing with Quia Organic Wines is a really great pairing.
Yes, really is.
So I definitely appreciated that. But let me stop that and let's come back here to center. But the Dunn's Josephine Hotel is definitely one for you to put on your list as a, you know, a place to check out, because, you know, it is a piece of our history in terms of creating the imagery that we need to keep our history circulating in our communities.
Yes.
So just definitely something to check out. And I also wanted to talk about Quia Organic Wines. I wish I had my bottle with me. I don't even know where I put it. Quia Organic Wines. I don't think I've ever enjoyed a red and a white as I did with their wines. And they have different, you know, combinations and things of that sort that pair up with different types of foods or cheeses. But in particular, there was a red and a white that I tasted that was just like, wow. And I'm going to try to put the names of those two in the description of this when this video is over. But you can find Quia Organic Wines at Whole Foods. Now, I don't know that Whole Foods is one of those things that you see everywhere. I know that it's a Florida thing, but I don't know if Whole Foods is something that you really see in a lot of different places.
And I think they're everywhere. Whole Foods, and I also think, didn't he say Fresh Market as well?
I don't remember, but I know that he was talking about other places that potentially you're going to be able to get it soon. And then I know that, you know, they're in the works of looking at other places that they can get it out that are larger distributors of the wine. But, you know, it's just always great to be able to support your local Black-owned businesses. And we definitely hope to be able to do some type of event or something at the Dunn's Josephine Hotel here in historic Overtown. So if you ever are in the South Florida area, please take advantage of the opportunity. Whole Foods owned by Amazon, so they're everywhere. Oh boy.
Right. There you go. They got that distribution on lock.
So as we're celebrating National Black Business Month, there are some topics that we really want to kind of chat about, because I'm starting to see stories in the news about different issues. And one of the issues that I think is of value to us is the PPP fraud issue that Biden just recently signed a bill about. And, we never realize how impactful some of these issues can be, really, until, the grits hit the fan and people really start to kind of, highlight the problems that are going on. So let's take a look at this thing that Biden just signed, because I'm sure that all of us may know some folks in our community that made the colossal error of thinking that they can get away with PPP loan fraud. Now, they may not catch you today, they may not catch you tomorrow, but trust and believe you may be caught. And I love that Lisa is drinking out of the LearnBiz mug. Let me make sure you all can see that. LearnBiz, the entrepreneur mindset mug that we originally created. I love it.
Yes.
All right, so let's take a look at this Biden article. It says Biden signs bill aimed at catching pandemic business loan cheats. He calls these people cheats. He's not even playing with them at this
point. They in trouble.
So President Joe Biden signed a pair of bills Friday that will give the Justice Department more time to investigate and prosecute people accused of fraudulently collecting government payments aimed at helping small businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I'm always curious, are they going to bring back some PPP money to help the businesses that didn't get money then? I don't know. What you need to know: President Joe Biden signed these bills. It gives the Justice Department more time. And the bills, which were recently passed by Congress with vast bipartisan support, are establishing a 10-year statute of limitations for criminal charges and civil enforcement. What you guys need to know about this statute of limitations is it's the amount of time that people have to prosecute you for a crime. So it's kind of like if you want to sue somebody, you have a statute of limitations for that type of lawsuit. If you want to prosecute someone for a criminal offense, you have a statute of limitations to do so. Well, they're expanding it 10 years. And I know they need that time because you have to calculate billions of dollars were stolen. Millions of dollars in other contexts were stolen. So,
78.1 billion in potentially fraudulent loans, and another 6.7 billion in grants, fraudulent type grants, or loans and grants linked to identity theft.
Yes. Whoa. So you definitely had a lot of people that were just filling out the EIDL, which was the first, I think that was the first one that came out that was really easy. It was like they were given money just based on the number of people that you had. And a lot of folks, they were a one-person operation. They would just put 10 so they could just get the full amount. And then a lot of the PPP loan fraudsters, many of them were just basically creating documents. They may not have even had a business. They created a business entity somehow. They may not have had taxes. They may not have had bank statements. And I used to see people on Facebook promoting the ability to create things like bank statements for you. And I was just like, how do you put your name out there as somebody who's going to create bank statements for someone?
How do you create bank statements?
That's on you, bro. That's on you. Last year, the agency watchdog identified more than 70,000 PPP loans totaling over 4.6 billion that were potentially fraudulent. They're not even saying it was fraudulent. They're saying potentially. So that means they're going to be looking into things that we might not anticipate.
Yeah, they're just going to check. They're just checking. That basically what they are is a huge federal auditing team. Well, and they are auditing and they are taking names and numbers.
Well, I'm glad my name and my number were associated with an accountant and legitimate paperwork for my legitimate business. The PPP, or Paycheck Protection Program, and Bank Fraud Enforcement Act, and the COVID-19 EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Fraud Statute of Limitations Act, establishes a 10-year statute of limitations for criminal charges and civil enforcement. Both bills recently passed Congress. And of course, everybody jumped on top of it. They want to show that they care about, getting back what was taken, la, la, la. And Doug said, unfortunately, it is a bunch of us that perpetrated PPP fraud. Guess what? That's why we're talking about it during National Black Business Month, because we want our Black businesses to start mentally and physically preparing themselves that if they took this money, that they very well in the next 10 years may, and I say may lightly because, they're not going to catch everybody, right? They may catch a good chunk, but they're not going to catch everybody, may face some charges in this instance. And I hope that they are enjoying whatever dollars that they stole, because it's about to be on. Joe Biden is like, nah. American people deserve to know that their tax dollars are being spent as intended. Now, here's the issue that I have.
That's what Biden said. But he knew that people, you just put this money out here, just fill out the application. Yeah. Don't give these folks a hard time. It's hard times out here. Give them the money, and everybody's on the honor system now.
And your boy Trump was in the backdrop of all of this issue to the early part. So, he said, you can't hide. He said, my message to those cheats out there is this: you can't hide. We're going to find you. We're going to make you pay back what you stole and hold you accountable under the law. Now, I don't know how you're going to make them pay back $4.6 billion or $78 billion or $6.7 billion. Good luck with that.
It's called restitution. And they are going to have to pay. What's going to happen is kind of like the carrot and stick in criminal prosecutions. And that would be is that you hang some period of maybe time over their head during a period of probation. And during that period of probation, they better pay every single time. And probably their release from probation may be tied to the final payment of every single dime. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. That's the carrot and stick approach. You stay out as long as you pay.
Look, this is going to be wild. Like, I don't even know how they're going to really get this done. The Paycheck Protection Program helps small businesses pay their employees after companies were forced to shut down during the pandemic. EIDL loans, on the other hand, and grants gave small businesses money to be used for working capital and other normal operation expenses. Now, here's the thing that kills me every time I listen to these stories. All you had to do was have a business and pay yourself, pay some employees, and spend it on legitimate things. It wasn't rocket science. And I think what really hurt a lot of folks is that some of these folks didn't have a business. So that was already the negative starting point. But some of these folks actually had a business. And it was just like, look, all you had to do, pay yourself, pay all these people that you probably gave money, and then buy your gadgets with your own money. Now, you might have still gotten wrapped up because you probably asked for way more than you were eligible to get. But at the bare minimum, you maybe could have decreased the blow of your fraud charges by actually paying some people, including yourself. Because again, when you own a business, many times you are an employee of the business. I know with my business, I'm an employee of my law firm. Well, so yes, I get a paycheck.
And it makes sense, Sandy, if you really think about it. If you're going to take some money and it's for expenses, then somehow you have to think about this. If somebody comes back and audits me, I need to show how I use this money.
Right.
The best way for me to show how I use this money is to track my expenses. And if you don't, QuickBooks, it's online. They're free versions. You can get one of those old-fashioned ledgers. Remember those old-fashioned ledgers? And just eraser. And actually set up some ledgers like whatever your bills are. January, February, March, April, all the way through December, and show what you paid each month on whatever your different expenses are, your creditors in your column. So, you can do it the old-fashioned way, but you better keep records. And you better keep receipts. I don't think times are so modern. I don't think we're so paperless yet, especially when it comes to the IRS and audit trails. Paper matters. Paper still matters. So keep your records, keep your documents, and be ready to account, especially if you're taking somebody else's money. It's just basic. It's basic.
Look, one of the major things that I did when I first started my law firm back when with my partner we got QuickBooks. We didn't have an accountant. We didn't have all the fluff, but we got a QuickBooks system. And it doesn't have to be QuickBooks, be whatever. There's a ton of these systems out there. We got a system to keep track. So every transaction was accounted for. Every expense was accounted for. Every time we paid ourselves or did, owner draws or whatever it is that we had to do, it was accounted for.
Exactly.
When it came time for us to apply for the PPP, that was the last issue that we had in terms of having, our books to be able to present, our balance sheet and our profit and loss. Our issue was making sure we had all of our taxes up to date, but thankfully we had an accountant to get all that. But some of these folks, it's literally like they don't have books. They don't have anybody to do their taxes properly. They don't even have taxes. They don't have a business entity. Or if they do have one, they weren't doing nothing with it. And they were like, oh, wait, PPP free? EIDL? Let me apply and put a bunch of fraudulent information. Mind you, these applications started off with the warning, perjury, fraud. Right at the beginning, you couldn't even get into the application without seeing in large text, all caps, under penalties of perjury, fraud, there was language.
But for some people, that was the small stuff. That was the stuff that was getting in the way. Like, let me get those pages out of the way. I ain't got time for that. What I need to do is to get down to the part where it says, how much money do you need?
Well, a lot of these people were having folks, they were paying folks to do it too. And I'm wondering if those folks are going to be going down as well. Are they going to be pulling the folks who were actually paid from the PPP funds to commit these fraudulent creations? Let's see. Doug says, I like that. We are the ones that are the perpetrators, man. We did this a lot. This is crazy.
Well, at least we will be held more accountable. I think that's the case. That's just like, all those people who stormed the Capitol building on January 6th. Did you see where I think there's like one black man in all the audience. Girl. You see this one black man who's like, yeah, get him. I'm with you guys. Freedom. Right. And so this brother who hurt some other people, trying to support these folks and their so-called cause, he got the most time so far. Why is he doing more time than any other person who's been charged under federal law with basically storming the Capitol and all the foolery that they caused? It's just amazing. So to Doug's point, no matter what, we will always be held more accountable. So beware. Beware.
Do stupid things, win stupid prizes. And if you're black, you're going to win the extra prize pack at the end of the thing. He got 5 years. Shoot.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Thank you, Doug. I don't think anybody's got that much time so far. If
that fool got 5 years, what did the fool that jumped through the windows and got into the main floor and was sitting at the desk of the speaker, what did they get? Because that's what I want to know. I want to know the folks that really got in. What about the folks that took paperwork from, I think it was Nancy Pelosi's desk? What did they get? And what did the folks get that were breaking all of the passageways as they were coming in to try to break in to get into other passages of the house? Like, I want to know what those folks got. Because if this guy got 5 years, them folks, because I didn't see that black guy. I don't know where he was in the grand scheme of things. I remember seeing a black, I might have seen some black folks outside because there were some folks selling t-shirts and stuff.
It wasn't hard to point. It wasn't hard to point him out. I mean, you talk about standing out like a sore thumb. It's like, how did he get mixed up in this crowd? But yeah, he was there supporting them conscientiously. Well, wasn't even drugged. He did that willingly.
Well, I hope he is enjoying his time. Oh, enjoy, sir. So just to wrap up this little article here, here's something interesting. The Inspector General blamed pressure to make payments quickly for the Small Business Administration, lowering its guardrails to prevent fraud. Now, here's what I don't understand. When our firm went through the paperwork, there was a lot of stuff. We had to submit we had to complete an application. Then we had to submit all of the supporting documents. Then they asked us for more supporting documents. Then they were asking more questions. So I understand if you're saying guardrails were down, but weren't they going through banks? Like, does the bank have any responsibility in this clearing process? Because we had to go through hoops with our bank to get these funds. So I really just don't understand how the guardrails were so low that there wasn't even a check and balance kind of thing. Because some of these things that I've seen pop up, when you look at the paperwork that they created, it was just like, this doesn't even make any sense. Like, for you to get that amount of money, you would have had to be making this amount of money.
Right.
But wouldn't you be able to produce bank statements to show that amount? And couldn't they make you get like a certified letter from the bank versus you just creating a bank statement?
Well, I don't know personally, but I mean, it just seems like with $78 billion out there in suspected fraud, a lot of folks like easily got some money. So,
man, I'm just pissed, man. Give me some of that money. Part of our plan is making sure that when we commit funds to help American small business, it actually goes to those small businesses as they're supposed to. That's what Biden's saying. And who is still testing positive for COVID. I guess he's going through COVID right now.
I think I heard recently that he is not positive any longer. So I think he's back out, putting out fires.
Yeah, and then he decided to do a Trump dig. I ain't reading that because I'm like, y'all play too much. I don't have time for y'all foolishness. But it's every time I think about this whole PPP loan fraud, I get more and more pissed because these amounts amount to monies that could have gone to not just Black-owned businesses, but all businesses in our communities. Many of the businesses which ended up having to close. When you think about the number of businesses that had to close during the pandemic, businesses that were around for a very long time, businesses that had, a little bit of standing in our communities and ended up just having to close. That's really, to me, the unfortunate part. And I'm like, I wish that there had been some other mechanism to distribute these funds, whether it be, and, I'm not saying that the banks would be any better because they'd be doing their own shenanigans, but I wish there was a way that they had done it where the funds had gone to different, entities and banks to kind of give some weight off of the SBA, because the reason that they went through all this nonsense is they were trying to expedite things. And in expediting, they were like, we got to get this money out. So of course you're going to miss all kinds of crap. Like, you're just going to see bank statements and you're cool. Well, if you really look at a bank statement, you can see whether the numbers add up, right? If you really look at taxes, you can see whether the numbers are. If you're really looking at an entity and you're like, man, they just started and they're making $10 million a year.
Well, I don't think people were really, on behalf of the government. I just think they're processing the applications. The banks help fostering the process, getting the money out to people. But the accountability piece comes later, obviously. Apparently, the accountability piece shows up later. So, and that's what you do in emergencies. So you have to make some adjustments. Otherwise, if you're doing the whole long scrutinizing process, it could take weeks, it could take months. And so that would not match emergency circumstances. So I kind of see why they did it this way. But I always look at it like this. When you take money from the government, beware, because they definitely have the ability to come and check and want you to open your books and want to take a peek and look at what you're doing because they're checking on their money. So I just say you got to be careful, if you don't want that risk that you might be audited, then don't take their money if you can afford not to. So it's just one of those things. Do it right or don't do it at all. How about that?
Look, it's always an episode when you start to think about some of these issues and the way that things play out, because you just don't have any room there.
Not at all.
Another topic that I wanted to talk about was this Khalees Beyonce situation. I don't know if you heard about this story. When I think about it, we're always trying to, in the entertainment industry, we're always trying to find some balance and some place where, we can continue to thrive as Black entertainers and things like that. And it's always interesting to see when these scenarios pop up, when there seems to be a bit of a conflict. And what I like about it is it's a conflict that's more based in business, because the issue that really kind of comes down to it in this Kelis Beyonce situation, and this is somebody's opinion that we're just going to take a look at, is that, you know, the ownership is at question. And one of the things that I learned about this situation is that Beyonce came out with a new project, and Kelis was accusing Beyonce of using a little bit of her song Milkshake. I don't know if you remember that song from back when.
Oh, yeah, I remember that song. I can sing it for you if you won't.
Well, you know, you can sing it if you want to. Let me scroll past that, because I don't know Beyonce half naked on this thing. But so
my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard.
Oh Lord, well don't sing too much of it, because I don't want that little copyright thing to come on. I'm gonna start talking through it. Hold on. You know what's funny? And the reason I'm saying this is because at my aunt's funeral, we were singing a song, and I was streaming to YouTube, and I got a copyright hit because it picked up the song that we were singing. And I was just like, dang, y'all can pick up the song that I'm saying. I'm like, oh, okay, I understand now.
Well, lucky for us, they won't be able to recognize my singing, so I think we're good.
So done with you right now. So 90s R&B legend, and this is an opinion, so we're going to kind of analyze it from our own opinion, but 90s R&B legend Kelis took to social media last week to express her unhappiness at the fact that a portion of her mega hit Milkshake has been used on the new Beyonce track Energy, and that she wasn't told about it. She found out when everybody else did, when the song was released. It's not a collaboration, it's thievery, she said. Now, it's since been reported that Beyonce's team quietly removed the offending part of the song altogether and re-uploaded it. And you know, right now we're in this streaming area, so it's not like they had to pull a bunch of albums from the racks or, you know, get these CDs out of distribution or whatever. The general sentiment that I'm hearing, and this is in this person's words, Kelis is pissed because Beyonce sampled her song without asking or telling her. Now, the interesting part in this situation is apparently Kelis doesn't have rights to this music. And the reason that she doesn't have rights to this music is there were some contract issues back when. And that's what's being alleged. You know, I don't know the whole deep down story, but the aspect that I want to focus on is the fact that ownership matters. And a lot of times when these conflicts arise, the first question has to be in the music industry, who owns the rights?
Yeah.
And many times, a lot of these artists, especially some of the artists that we love and we enjoyed over the years, especially in our childhood, many of them had some really horrible deals.
Yeah.
You know, their contracts were not ironed out in the way that they probably would have preferred. Many of them did not gain the rights to their masters. They did not have the rights to their works because maybe they weren't the writers. They maybe lost rights to things because they signed off their rights when they signed these contracts. Many folks
gave up too much.
Yeah, they gave up too much at the beginning. They took these advances, not realizing that these advances were going to be deducted from monies that they made, and not realizing that also when they were doing these advances and signing up for these things, that they were going to be taking advantage of much lower opportunities down the line. So, you know, it's really important for us to understand in this whole Kelis Beyonce situation that this is not really an issue between Beyonce and Kelis per se. But I think one of the gripes of Kelis is that, you know, you're taking a song that I had issue with in terms of contracts. And it's like, you know, some of the commentary that I've seen is, you know, I'm a Black woman, she's a Black woman, you know, why would she do that? Because she knows that I'm not going to make, you know, any money from this song. I don't have the rights to the song, but it is my song. And unfortunately, it was like it was stolen from me kind of thing. Right. That's the sentiment that I've been reading in different posts. And so, you know, it's just really interesting. She, to my understanding, doesn't really have credits in this whole situation. And it's unfortunate.
This is when Kelis Rogers has a writer credit on a song, she will likely be listed by her actual name rather than by her performer name. Okay. So it will be like, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, how they got it in the red right there.
And I mean, so she's, you know, posted some videos about how she feels about the situation. And, you know, it's the music that she used, and of course Beyonce has already taken this music out, but the music that was used and the fact that Khalees may have been listed doesn't necessarily mean Khalees was going to get anything from this, because again, she didn't own the rights to this, and she made it very, very like apparent that she was just pissed at the fact that, first of all, it was even used and she wasn't even given the heads up. Second of all, again, she doesn't have rights to it. It was hers, according to her, but she doesn't unfortunately have rights to it. And the bit that was used, she's like, well, it's not about the money. I don't care about the money. I'm just pissed off that I wasn't given some kind of common courtesy.
And I'm feeling her with that, because it's like it's a business to business type mindset. Like you're in this lane and I'm in this lane. We're both Black women in this entertainment industry. We know what is going on. We know the politics. And so when you see me in the struggle, you're not supposed to benefit from me being in the struggle, being out here trying to make mine or obtain mine. Just like when you're fighting the industry on some things, I'm not supposed to take advantage of your situation and try to capitalize on that. I think I feel Khalees from that point of view. I really do. And it seems like to me that I would have wanted to have a relationship, or say at least I know everybody whose music I use on my album. Like I would have wanted to talk to them like, you cool with that? Everything's okay? We're good. Just to make sure. Why not give a phone call? I'm glad you decided to collab with me, or at least let us sample some of your music. We appreciate it. We're having a listening party. There's some things that could have been done ahead on Beyonce's part to make sure that she was solid before she released her CD.
Now, one of the things, I keep looking at bits and pieces from different articles, and this is another article from The Guardian. And one of the comments that was made is, it doesn't matter that Beyonce didn't actually infringe Khalees's rights. The point is that people think she did because the public aren't educated about music copyright. Khalees doesn't have any legal standing, but by being vocal on social media, she creates emotional and moral capital. And guess what? That's exactly what Khalees wants. She wants the emotional response because that's how she feels. Not right, wrong, or indifferent, but she is actually expressing how she feels. And she doesn't care that she doesn't actually have rights. She cares that what was done to her, according to her, was wrong. Mm-hmm. And so she does not feel, in the way that she's expressing it, she does not feel that anybody should be, addressing this song or talking about this particular situation, because again, she's not going to be benefiting from it. Right. So, the sad part about it is there's no beef between Khalees and Beyonce when you really think about it. Mm-hmm. There's an issue with money and contracts. Right. Doug says, my opinion, she should have took that up with Pharrell. I agree. Because I believe he has ownership and could share a part of the profits. Khalees has the bad business practice. And you know what? That's probably true. And that's why when you're dealing with these types of situations and you're dealing with emotions, there's no actual, there's no balance here. There's no reasoning, right? Because Khalees is acting out of emotion. She's not acting out of, okay, I have a contract. I can do this. I can do that. She's just like, F this. I don't want to hear nothing about this, right? So, it's really unfortunate that this is how it kind of played out. And I would have loved to have seen something come out of this that would have been more of an education for us as the community versus us dealing with the emotional. But again,
because the way the music was put out there, I would have probably liked to have heard it before it was pulled from the streaming service. It could have been awesome. And maybe if Khalees and Beyonce could have, worked it out a little bit better, but people have to communicate. So what that tells me is just because you have money, it doesn't mean you communicating and with people and talking to the right people. You can still be doing things and just messing up because you're not communication is everything. And you can do that as long as we have a mouth and a telephone and the internet. We can communicate. There's no reason for us not to communicate and iron out issues ahead of some drama.
Look, we we're in the age where everything is pulled to social media. Folks can't just, have conversations behind closed doors. Everything is viral. Everything has to be posted. We've seen a lot of things in the news recently where all kinds of activities and events and, deaths and things like that have happened, and people are broadcasting stuff on social media. It just doesn't make any sense. I think I only have one more story on my list. This is an oldie but goodie that we talked about quite some time ago. Good old Monique. And, Monique's, you already know Monique. Monique was doing quite a bit. And unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately. Fortunately for her, I guess things might have panned out in the way that she wanted it to pan out. I don't know if this is good, bad, or indifferent, but Monique announces Netflix comedy special. Netflix, remember good old Netflix that Monique was beefing with? Following discrimination suit settlement. So they came to a settlement, interestingly enough. And I really would have been curious to see what they settled for, but we're not going to hear all those details. So when it comes to
undisclosed amount.
Yeah, man, they play too much. So, she announced in a video, this was quite some time ago, that she will be doing her first comedy special with Netflix. And she said that they basically settled their discrimination lawsuit. Mm-hmm. It's been amicably resolved, allegedly, right?
Yeah.
Now, Monique says in a video that she posted, can y'all believe this? I done came home onto Netflix. And I'm like, okay. Now, after all the things that were said during all of this thing, and now Netflix is saying, thrilled to announce that Netflix is the home for the next original stand-up comedy from the groundbreaking, trailblazing, and iconic Monique. Now, how you feel about this, Lisa? Because my eyes. I don't know how I feel about it.
No, man. It's like, I accuse you of discrimination, which means you're not treating, I'm thinking this is racial, or is it sexual?
I have a feeling it probably is racial. It could be gender as well. I think it was a suit that involved a couple of different things.
Okay, so maybe racial and sexual discrimination. And somehow I found a sweet spot with you, though. I found a little sweet spot. And that sweet spot is probably going to make me forget about all that other stuff. I don't know. Here's the thing. When you are seeking some type of policy change with an organization, then sometimes you got to hold out, not just for the money piece, but that have they rectified those issues that you originally complained about? Because if they haven't, then it just looks like it really just is something to profit you and not maybe those who might be coming in these spaces after you. And if that's the case, what was this really all about? Was it for the public good? Was it just for you? Most people, they want to rectify it so it never happens to somebody else, whatever that is. And that's the piece I feel like I'm missing from her on the marketing side. She's silent on that part.
I just, when I saw this, I was just kind of like, it would be one thing if she settled her suit. I just don't know that I would want to do a special on Netflix. If you firmly believe that Netflix was discriminatory, it's kind of like this, Lisa. Let's say I go to a restaurant and they mistreat me at the restaurant and they talk to me like a dog. I mean, like they just treat me horribly at the restaurant. And I file suit. And now the restaurant gives me something so I can come there and get free meals for a year or some crap like that. But I'm going to go back to the same exact restaurant with the same exact people and the same exact issues. You think these fools are going to be feeding me properly and doing what I need? And they might be with the little grit of, he was smiling at you and just doing the stuff and they don't care. I don't know if I would feel at home there. I think I would, if I'm being paid enough from this settlement, I think I would want to put out something more independently. The way Monique talks, she has a lot, of following, and if you have a lot of following, then let's make it happen yourself. You know what I'm saying? Or go to a network that is more Black owned, Black focused, or whatever. That was my thought, and I really felt like, I don't know if I want to go back to the place. Like there's some restaurants that have done me wrong, and I haven't gone back. You're not getting my dollars.
Sandy, you make an excellent point. You make a really excellent point right there. Because if they haven't had any like racial diversity training or some kind of training that helps them change their mindset, and we always focus on the mindset around here. I notice I'm freezing a lot. Sorry about that, guys. But if they haven't changed their mindset, they may be spitting in your food back in that kitchen. It's no telling what they're doing to those scrambled eggs before you get them back at that table. And so you don't want to eat at some racist institution for a year, even if it is free, right?
Well, Lisa, JB says they didn't want the discovery to be shown. So they were like, let's go ahead on and settle with Miss Monique here. We're just going to give her a little special, give her a little bread.
But JB, guess what? She probably can't even talk about the terms of the settlement. Like whatever they are, even if it's for the public good, you can't even talk about it now. And I don't know about that.
The other thing is, who's making money off of this really?
The network, Netflix.
So they're not losing either way. You're going to do a special on their network. Now, I don't know what her contract is, but I'm pretty sure Netflix is not giving you more than they're making.
I'm pretty sure about that. And at the end of the day, you're on Netflix, which means that they control the rights to the stuff that they put out on their their channel. So I don't know. I don't know what she benefits from this. It looks like it was all about her personally and no one else anyway.
Yeah, because I'm always inclined to ask myself, so you filed a suit that had to do with discrimination. And if it was discrimination about gender and discrimination about race, to me, not only would you be receiving something from it, but you would be opening doors for others to receive as well. Yeah. And so I'm going to be curious to see in the next 5 to 10 years what types of things Netflix does. I don't know how long Netflix is going to be around, but
it shouldn't take that long.
What types of comics are going to get these specials? I do see I do see a bit of diversity when it comes to Netflix and comedy specials. I do see a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious if the suit that she filed is going to be realized in Netflix's comedy specials, like for Black women or Black men or what. Because I know I see a lot of Black men. I don't really see a lot of Black women. I do see a lot of other groups in terms of comedy specials. So I don't know. I'm not sure if we're going to really see anything from this. And I don't know if maybe all of Monique's efforts really were just focused on what she wanted. Because, a lot of times she'll say that, she was trying to fight for us kind of thing. And I'm just like, but did you get what we needed, right? If you're saying you're fighting for us, not just for yourself, but for us, did you make sure that whatever you were agreeing to was laying a foundation or a path for others coming behind you to not be shortchanged? Or are you setting it up that the next person that comes, Netflix is going to be like, y'all, let's just give them a special and, we're going to make the money anyway and we're good.
Right. Or you're coming after Monique. Oh, you file your own lawsuit. You know what I mean? Because that wasn't resolved as a whole. And plus she can't even talk about anything. We done shut her up and paid her off. So, hey, so we have to be careful about, what I'm realizing in business is that marketing really means everything to your business. Like, even if you're not guilty of something, but you look guilty, that can affect business.
All right. So let me see here. Netflix had specials where the comedians were paid top dollar, but didn't do well. So that would have opened the door for her to win. That's why they settled. And Doug says it was always about her. And what's interesting is, while it's always about her, Netflix doesn't lose either way, because the only thing you've really done right now is you've made it seem like Netflix did something good. Mm-hmm. Netflix is still going to make money because even though they're giving you a special, they're the ones really making the money. You're not making the bulk of the money. It's going to be on Netflix. It's not yours. It's for Netflix.
Right.
And I could imagine she, maybe tried to carve out some things for herself in terms of making money, in the residual part, but the network is always going to make more money. That's without question.
Right.
So I don't know. I think we've covered a couple of things, and I don't know if you have any others, Lisa, that you wanted to talk about, but
well, mine, I see, I'm trying to figure out how to fit this in, but I'm just going to throw it out here. My issue has to do with teaching. Those who are in the teaching profession, those who have had to go to college and get degrees to become educators, they are now competing with military personnel of 4 years or more when it comes to classroom teaching. This is your competition out there. And I'm like, how did we get in this position in this country? So a whole class of educators, and they're missing out of the classrooms in America. Something like over 8,000 teachers and personnel are missing. I think I don't know if it's just the state of Florida alone, but the stats are high and staggering across the country. How did we get here and not valuing education and the ones who are teaching our children?
I mean, I think that's a really easy answer for me coming from education. I was in the classroom for 6.5 years at one point, and I was also in the classroom again for another 1.5 years or so. There's a lot of reasons. Teachers are probably the most underappreciated. And I don't think it was until COVID that a lot of families started to understand, the role that teachers really play in their children's lives. They're underappreciated, they're overworked, they're expected to have all of these extra things, and they're not given, in many instances, the types of resources and information and opportunities that they need to support their students. One of my major gripes when I was in the classroom was the fact that it wasn't about the students. It never felt like it was about the students. There was always something more important. It was about the testing. It was about making sure numbers were in the building. It was about squeezing as many students in classrooms. It was about all these other things. And the more that I would look at it, I'm like, okay, so you all are worried about, I was a science teacher. So it was like, you all are worried about, now that they're testing science in Florida, you want them to have these high science scores. Well, if they have low reading scores and low math scores, how in all tarnation do you expect them to have high science scores?
Right.
If they can't critically think and they can't read and they can't analyze, that's the core of science.
Yes.
And I would just be sitting there looking at them like, what we should be doing is doing more engaging activities, more hands-on, more outside of the classroom, more things, and less taking tests, right? Because we need the students to be able to reason and rationalize while collectively trying to match up with their writing classes and their reading classes and their math classes. But you can't expect miracles when you're not providing what the kids need. And a lot of communities, I didn't teach at a school that was fantastical when it comes to having resources and access. We had some things, but we also lacked a lot of things. And then you would look at the schools out west and you're thinking to yourself, when your kids match up with the kids out west, it's like, man, they got all of this stuff. We don't have these things. And it would always be like, well, the taxes in this neighborhood or this or that or the funding. And I'm like, funding for education should be based upon the need. Right? There should be some accommodation. And if you can find funding to send to other countries, if you can find funding to give these fraudulent scamsters for PPP loans, if you can find funding to do all of these other things, how do you not enable funding for the most important thing, the education of our children?
Could it be because there's a war against public education and public schooling? There seems to be some kind of war in this country that, I don't know, that people are almost fighting against it. A lot of people are running to charter schools, specialized schools. And I mean, a good public education, I think, is the foundation to getting a basic job in this country. Teaching you want your citizens to be able to read and write and analyze and do basic math. And if we're not continuously investing in teachers so that they give our students what they need across this country, I'm like, does everything have to have a country club feel to America, that you only get the good stuff if you afford it? Not that as a part of nation building or being an American, you're entitled to basic things that just stabilize us as a nation. We want to make everything based on kind of like the country club approach. You only get a good education if you can afford it, and if you're smart, and if you're rich.
Yeah, I'm over it. When I hear people talking about, oh, teachers are leaving the profession, I'm like, that's not surprising whatsoever. Like, I don't feel like, I'm surprised teachers didn't leave in mass years ago when they weren't getting raises down here in South Florida. I was just like, no, I'm not surprised. So let's take a look at this article from back in June, which, relatively close to what we're talking about here. More than half of U.S. teachers are considering leaving the profession. And it basically says the U.S. teacher shortage could be getting worse. No, it is getting worse. A March 2022 survey from the National Education Association showed that more than half of teachers intend to leave the profession earlier than they planned. And that was before the elementary school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Now, I'm going to tell you something. When I started teaching years ago, this was back in 2004, I remember wanting to leave the profession pretty quickly. Like, within my first year, I was kind of like, I don't know if this is going to be for me. Now, I ended up staying longer than expected, but it was because I enjoyed working with children. I'd always worked with children and families. And I enjoyed the work that I did in the classroom. I tried to make the experience for my students something of a, real connection, because, they weren't going to get that otherwise.
Right.
A lot of times, especially with science, children were very dismissive of science. Where they can get the reading, they can get the writing, they get the math. Science was one of those, oh, you want me to think? You want me to think? You want me to reason? You want me to ask questions and test things so that I can come to the answers? Oh no, they weren't having it, because you really have to step outside of this concept of, 1 + 1 is 2. It's more like 1 plus something is going to take me to something. And so I have to I have to figure out what the equation comes down to and be able to test some different variables and, figure that out. Here comes JB. Education should be nationally funded, but you would have to put education in the hands of the federal government or fund it through federal grants. Good Lord, we see. Nah, bruh.
Wow. And the federal government doesn't want to work. Sandy, we are lawyers, and I've always been fascinated by this topic, and we'll have to talk about it another time, of course, but state rights versus federalism. Because with states doing 50 potentially different things across the country versus national expectation and standards for Americans, I'm getting concerned. I don't want to start this talk on what's going on with abortion and all that, but I mean, you can have 50 different ways to do things across one nation if we're not careful on a number of things.
I mean, that's what we currently have right now. I mean, you go from one state to another. Some people will come from one state and move to another because they blatantly will get a better education. And the sad part is, across the board in the United States, we're not even performing at the level that a lot of other countries are performing.
Yeah,
so it's just
down there, really.
It doesn't make any sense that we don't want to have any kind of national standard so that all of our students can perform. It's kind of like, well, if you go here, you're going to do well, but if you go over here, you might survive. That's not how education should be.
Right.
I mean, that should be foundational, like healthcare. But, of course, God forbid we actually talk about that.
And if you go to Chicago, forget about books. Just get a bulletproof vest. And
I'm so done with Lisa
unless
right
you
now.
want to get it like a personalized body bag. I mean, come on, we got a lot of issues to work out in this country. And when it comes to education, and kids should not have to worry about guns in schools. And that might be a reason why some teachers are saying, I'm not coming back. I'm not dealing with this.
Now, one of the things that was said in this article from back in June is 90% of teachers are saying they're really thinking about what happened in Uvalde and what that means for them. Now, if I remember correctly, this was the shooting that was at the school. There was a delayed response to getting, some help and support there. And basically a whole bunch of children lost their lives in that. And it's unfortunate because it created this big question mark for a lot of teachers of their safety. And it's like, back in the day, I don't think I ever really thought about, I worked at a school where we used to have active shooter drills a lot. Because we would have shootings and we were in a neighborhood. There was a project type area and there was a regular neighborhood and some other areas, but we were in a very mixed neighborhood, but surrounding school was a lot of projects. And one of the things that would happen oftentimes is we would have an active shooter drill that was really real. It wasn't a drill, but we're thinking it's a drill, but it's not a drill. And there was actually an active shooter in the neighborhood, or sometimes even approaching our campus, like maybe had jumped the fence or something like that. So I'm not really new to the concept of safety could be a concern.
Right.
But one of the things that I started to recognize early on is we kind of had this, all right, campus is shut down. Active shooter, campus shut down. Nobody's opened the door for nobody. Thankfully, our system of doors, your door had to be locked. There was no unlocked doors. And we also had intertwined classrooms. So it'd be like, you may have, especially in our building, we had section of classrooms that were in clusters. So it'd be 4 classrooms that are connected by an inner room. And so we would do things like, if the kids needed to use the bathroom, we'd have to set up a trash can with some plastic bags. And they would have to go into the center room to use the you could not leave the rooms to go into the hallways. We were an outdoor facility. So there was a main building and there was an outdoor building. I was in the outdoor building. And so our hallways were facing the outdoors. So if somebody like a shooter came on, they could literally come right to my classroom door. The catch was our doors were kind of, solidified, there was special locking and whatever. And we always had like the panels, sealed up whenever there was an active shooter drill. But it was never a question of, hey, what are we doing? Nah, it was like active shooter. Let's go. Shut it down. You need to use bathroom. You got to go right there. Blah, blah, blah. Nobody had questions about it.
Right. Exactly.
But, I don't know how, people are managing with the security questions now with shooters being more frequent, shooters actually getting in. This is not even like the shooter is in the vicinity or near the campus. They are getting into the building.
In some cases, you train in the future shooters in the active shooter drills. I mean, it's just, the thing is that I don't know anymore. Everything probably is going to be virtual.
Yeah, that's true. But, it is what it is. But, I will say overall, as I said, as a former educator, many of the things that I see in these conversations about education at its root, teachers need to get paid more. They need to be appreciated more. They need to have more resources and more supports. True. And I'm not saying across the board that teachers don't have resources. There are some schools and some teachers that do have great supports and resources. Yeah. But there are a lot that do not. Yeah. And I think that those should be the starting point.
Tax base. That's the problem across America, is that the funding of the schools is based on the tax base. And so the rich do well and the poor do poorer. And that's the concept of America. And until we change that concept, then we're not producing top quality citizens throughout the country. It just depends on who you are and how much money you have.
Yeah.
And that's always going to be the minority. So what are we really doing?
And I know that there are going to be some outliers. There's always going to be scenarios where people do well, no matter what circumstance they're in. There's always going to be those types of outliers, but that's not the norm. That is not the majority. And we definitely need to look at education in the way that we look at other things in our life, whether it be healthcare, whether it be business, whether it be the economy as a whole. It irks me when I see that we can find money for everything but education. Mm-hmm. The amounts of money that have left this country since the pandemic, the amounts of money that have circulated in this country since the pandemic. Can you imagine if even a fraction of that was properly addressed in our education system?
Yeah,
Doug says the future of teachers will be artificial intelligence. And I'm also going to say, Doug, on that, homeschool is going to become a booming business as far as I'm concerned.
I do too. I
Because
think
a lot
so.
of people recognize the benefit of homeschool during COVID. And I think between the technology and the fact that people are taking advantage of alternative school settings and online schooling and things like that, yes, I definitely see artificial intelligence being up there in the conversation.
Yeah, I did too. We talked up on 9 o'clock here. Wow.
Look, we do it sometimes. We do it. But, moral of the story, as we talked about all of these current issues in the news, one thing that registers for me when it comes to business is that there are so many issues going on in the world. And we as business owners have to be flexible to understanding the role that these things may play in our businesses. Because again, when there are issues economically that affect our communities, it affects the bottom line of whether or not we're going to be operational as well. We saw during the pandemic how a lot of people ended up not being able to work at all. And in many regards, that affected a lot of industries, especially the industries that had to shut down shop during much of the shutdown of the pandemic. So I think it's important as business owners for us to look at ways that we can offset these types of issues. Also, being prepared for programs that may pop up. Many folks were not eligible to apply for PPP funding. And that's why some of these folks were committing fraud, because they weren't eligible. So they wanted to find a way to be eligible. And unfortunately, they chose the wrong way.
Right.
But for those of us that were in position that should have been able to access, many of us should have been ready for this and understanding that things happen, but we have to have our business paperwork in order. We have to have our books in order. We definitely should consider having an accountant at some point in our business, preferably at the beginning. But obviously, at some point in your business, you should be consulting with an accountant to make sure that you're taking advantage of tax benefits and to make sure that you're prepared, financially speaking, with your paperwork, so that if you want to apply for an SBA loan, you want to apply for that grant, you want to apply for that local city or county program, that you're ready. And a lot of us didn't benefit from these PPP funds because we weren't ready.
I know. Unfortunately.
And last but not least, with these stories with Monique and Khalees and Beyonce and some of these things that happen in the entertainment industry, which a lot of our community spends a great deal of time and effort in, contracts mean everything. Contracts mean everything. And,
Bible.
You can sue if you have the resources. Not everybody has the resources to sue, but you can sue if you have the resources. But the first thing that needs to be done is having that contract in place and being sure that that contract represents your interests, having a lawyer review your contracts. Many folks get into business and, become artists or entertainers, and they just go in.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, then we start to hear stories like we did with Khalees, Beyonce, and Monique. So there's a lot that we can do as business owners. And I hope during National Black Business Month that many of us really start to take a moment to reflect and analyze our business strengths and weaknesses and trying to see ways that we can improve, because we can always improve.
Exactly. And don't forget to support each other during National Black Business Month, which is August 2022. And it sounds like it's an annual thing, but we can do it 365 days a year. Find businesses to support and sustain.
Right. Absolutely. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to LearnBiz, the podcast. If you haven't already started following Lisa and I's personal businesses, you can find Lisa K.Crawford on Instagram. You can find Spectrum Law on Instagram. We'll post that information in the description. But we're both attorneys. We both work in the realm of probate and estate planning. Lisa is also a real estate broker associate, and she can get you into that South Florida property just like that. You just need to contact her.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to help you.
All right, guys, have a great day. We'll tune in with you again on Friday, and we hope that you enjoyed this broadcast. Please click like, click subscribe, and definitely share this with someone that you care about. Have a great one, guys.